The highway stretched endlessly before me, swallowed by the suffocating darkness of the night. My headlights carved weak tunnels through the mist hanging low over the road, distorting the silhouettes of trees that lined the edges like silent sentinels. I had been driving for hours, the glow of the dashboard clock telling me it was just past 2 a.m. The monotony of the drive had settled into my bones, but a creeping unease was beginning to take root. I wasn't supposed to be out this late. I had left my friend's house much earlier, but a series of wrong turns had sent me down unfamiliar back roads. My phone had died an hour ago, cutting off my only source of navigation. Now I was alone, relying on a nearly empty gas tank and a fraying sense of direction to get home. The road signs I passed seemed unfamiliar, their letters warped by the night. Had I seen that same sign before? Was I driving in circles? The thought made my grip tighten on the steering wheel. I needed to focus, just keep driving. Eventually I'd hit a town, a gas station, somewhere with a map or a charger. Then I saw her. A lone figure stood on the shoulder of the road just ahead, illuminated by my high beams. My breath caught in my throat. She was barefoot, wearing a pale dress that clung to her thin frame. Her long hair was wet, hanging in heavy strands over her face, concealing her features. She didn't wave for help. She didn't move at all. She just stood there staring at my car as I approached. I should have kept driving, but something compelled me to slow down. Maybe it was guilt. What if she was lost or in trouble? The rational part of my brain screamed at me not to stop, but my foot was already pressing the brake. As the car rolled to a halt, the woman took a single step forward. My pulse hammered in my ears. I reached for the door handle, hesitating. Her feet barely touched the ground as she ran beside the car, her body moving unnaturally fast. That impossibly wide grin never faltered. My heart slammed against my ribs. I pushed the accelerator to the floor, the car groaning in protest. The speedometer climbed 60, 70, 80 miles per hour, but she never fell behind. Then she vanished. I blinked, my mind struggling to comprehend what I had just seen. My eyes flicked to the rearview mirror again, scanning the road behind me. Nothing but darkness. And then, a whisper in my ear. "You shouldn't have stopped." Cold breath ghosted over my skin. My body went rigid, every hair on my neck standing on end. Slowly, unwillingly, I turned my head. She was in the passenger seat. My foot slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched as the car fishtailed violently. I threw my arms over my head as the world spun. A deafening crunch. The windshield shattered. Then, nothing. I woke to silence. The car had come to rest in a ditch, the front crumpled like a tin can. My head throbbed, blood trickling down my temple. I struggled to focus, my breath shaky and uneven. She was gone. For a moment I thought I had imagined the whole thing. The crash must have knocked me senseless. But then I heard it, a slow, deliberate tapping on the broken windshield. Tap, tap, tap. I didn't move, didn't breathe. A whisper slithered through the shattered glass. "See you soon." The tapping stopped. The night swallowed everything whole, and I ran, stumbling into the darkness, never daring to look back.
The old station wagon rumbled down the deserted highway, swallowed by the oppressive darkness of the dense forest. Moonlight, fractured by the thick canopy, painted an eerie, shifting mosaic on the asphalt ahead. The air hung heavy and humid, thick with the scent of pine and damp earth. It was well past midnight, the silence of the hour broken only by the rhythmic whir of the engine, and the occasional screech of an owl hidden deep within the woods. The driver, a lone figure behind the wheel, gripped the steering wheel, knuckles white. John was weary, his limbs heavy with fatigue after a long day at the family reunion. The seemingly endless ribbon of road stretched before him, each passing mile a struggle against the rising tide of exhaustion. He had been driving for what felt like an eternity, the miles blurring into an indistinguishable mass of asphalt and trees. John's eyelids felt like lead weights, his vision blurring with each passing moment. He fought to keep his eyes open, the monotony of the road and the hypnotic drone of the engine conspiring against him. He knew he should stop, find a motel, or at least pull over at a rest stop, But the thought of another hour of driving to reach civilization spurred him onward. He told himself he could make it just a little further, just another few miles. But deep down, he knew he was pushing his luck. The road was treacherous at this hour, the darkness concealing its twists and turns with an unsettling finality. He had heard stories, whispered tales of strange occurrences on this stretch of highway, stories that sent shivers down the spines of even the most seasoned travelers. He finally gave in to the overwhelming urge to rest. Pulling off the main road onto a narrow, overgrown side road, he found a small clearing barely large enough to accommodate the car. He killed the engine, plunging the world into an almost deafening silence. The only sound was the frantic thumping of his own heart, a steady rhythm against the backdrop of the still night. He checked his watch, almost 2 a.m. He would rest here for just an hour, he told himself, just long enough to clear his head and shake off the oppressive fatigue. Leaning back in the driver's seat, he closed his eyes, willing himself to relax. Sleep came quickly, a fitful, uneasy slumber filled with half-formed dreams and a lingering sense of unease. A noise jolted him awake. He sat bolt upright, heart pounding in his chest, a cold sweat clinging to his skin. The sound came again, a faint scratching noise like claws on metal, coming from somewhere outside the car. He strained to hear, holding his breath, every sense on high alert. The sound came again, closer this time, followed by a low growl that sent shivers down his spine. Fear, sharp and cold, gripped him. His mind raced, conjuring up images of wild animals, their eyes gleaming in the darkness. He fumbled for the flashlight in the glove compartment, his hands shaking. He had to see what was out there. Clicking on the flashlight, he aimed the beam into the darkness. The woods seemed to press in on him, the trees like silent sentinels watching his every move. He scanned the area, the beam of light cutting through the darkness, but he could see nothing, just the trees, their branches swaying slightly in the night breeze. Then, a flicker of movement at the edge of the light caught his eye. Something was moving out there, something large and dark. He swung the flashlight towards it, but it was gone, vanished as quickly as it had appeared. Had he imagined it? His pulse quickened, his mind playing tricks on him in the darkness. He decided to leave, get back on the road, and put as much distance between himself and this place as possible. But as he started the engine, his headlights flickered across something in the distance. Another car, parked haphazardly at the edge of the clearing, its driver's side door hanging open. He hadn't noticed it before, hidden as it was in the dense shadows. Curiosity warred with fear. He should keep going, he knew that. But something about the abandoned car drew him in. Turning off his engine, he grabbed the flashlight and cautiously approached the vehicle, his every sense alert for any sign of danger. As he got closer, he noticed the car was empty, the engine cold. There was a backpack tossed carelessly on the passenger seat, and a half-eaten bag of chips on the floor. Where was the driver? He shone the flashlight around the clearing, his heart pounding in his chest. And that's when he saw him. A figure emerged from the trees, a tall, disheveled man with wild eyes and clothes torn and covered in dirt. He was yelling something, his voice hoarse and desperate, his words lost in the wind. He stumbled towards John, his face contorted in a mask of fear and urgency. "Get out of here!" he screamed, his voice raw with terror. "Get out now!" John didn't hesitate. Whatever had spooked this man, whatever lurked in the shadows of the forest, he wanted no part of it. He scrambled back to his car, his blood turning to ice. The man's panicked screams echoed in his ears, fueling his fear. As he slammed the car door shut, he could hear the man still yelling, his voice growing fainter as John threw the car into gear and sped away. He didn't look back. He didn't dare to see if the man was still there, didn't want to know what had become of him. The image of the man's terrified face was burned into his mind, a stark reminder of the unseen dangers that lurked in the darkness. The rest of the drive was a blur. He didn't stop until he reached the first rays of dawn, the sight of the rising sun a welcome relief after the harrowing night. He never did find out what had frightened the man in the woods, and he never went back to find out. The experience left an indelible mark, a chilling reminder that some things are best left undisturbed. He carried the memory of that night with him, a cautionary tale whispered in the stillness of the early morning hours. A reminder that the open road, alluring as it may seem, can also be a place of profound darkness. where even the most seasoned traveler can stumble upon the unknown and be forever changed by what they find.